What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kick and Make Up. I'm the American Hybrid Nick Cunningham. With me, as always, Jeremy J.D. Dorsey, and we are back. We're alive. It's been a while. Bing, bang, boom. I don't know, man. I'm so excited. I'm containing it in a ball right now because I've got a lot in front of me about content.
Right.
But we just need to talk about how we are back. We are live from the Davenport Boxing Club. Big shout out to Pat Pena and everybody here that allowed us to come in and shoot down here. And we are here for a reason. But first of all, man, what's going on? Long time.
I know. I didn't even realize it had been as long as it had been for us to actually do a show. You know, life happens, things happen. MMA slows down a little bit, but I think that we have gotten ourselves into a very good point, a very good situation. Now we're ready to go hard like we have been in the past, and we got some really big things happening. And I know people say that all the time, like, oh, we got this going on. Like, no, we really have some really big stuff going on.
It's done.
Yes.
It's not pending that we may have some big news coming. It's done. We're just not going to tell you yet because we're going to build up some anticipation.
Yes.
Maybe drop a few little hints here and there on social media and you know, amongst our friends.
Right.
But now you know. That's the exclusive you get for coming back to Kick and Make Up, is that you know that something big is coming up. And it's for you guys, because that's why we do this show. So before we get into the monstrous informational show, yes.
Yes, I like that.
Because this past weekend, UFC 193, oh my God, was ginormous. And we're going to talk about that, but we're going to get all the particulars out of the way first. This is the Kick and Make Up show. www.kickandmakeup is where you can go see all of our past shows and where we put up pictures and just anything and everything. Go to that, www.kickandmakeup.com. If you've got Twitter, at Kick and Make Up is the show's, at Hybrid MMA is mine. Make sure that you ask us questions, you know, post weird random stuff on Twitter, whatever you want. That's what's a little bit more fun about everything else, is we can be a little bit more interactive on that.
Mm-hmm. You know, sorry to interrupt, but
No.
Just shout out to everybody who was, you know, interacting with me on Twitter this past weekend. It was ridiculous. Like, it's finally gotten to the point now where I can say pretty much anything and I'll get responses. So, like, that's when Twitter, you know, starts to become cool. So, just big shout out to everybody who did that. I know, you know, 193 was going on and there was just tons and tons and tons of traffic. So, you know, I think we got close to 4,000 hits on our site just in one day, just from, you know, being on Twitter, putting out different things. So, you know, it's pretty awesome. So I just want to ask people to continue to do that. And, yeah, any interaction is good interaction.
Instagram also is what we are on lately, and our YouTube channel as well, that also has all the past shows on it. So, yeah, please comment. Let us know what you think. If this is your first time watching this show, sit back, relax. At the end of the show, comment on something that we just said and let us know what you think about what we do, and if we missed anything or you want to hear anything else or you want us to add a segment. I don't know, maybe it's time to add a new segment.
Maybe.
But I like the ones we have.
I do too.
So we're going to keep these today for sure. We are going to go right into the first part of the show, and let me tell you how it is. If also this is your first time, we do the high kick of the week. We do the low kick, where that's kind of the worst thing. The high is the best. And then that's some bull kick, where we just pick up this table and throw it, and then we start yelling about whatever weird and goofy and controversial thing going on, and we
ridiculous.
We say whatever we want.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's our show. We can do what we want, right?
Because that's some bull kick.
Yes.
And this week, that's some bull kick. So we are gonna start with the high kick, though. Obviously, the high kick of this week goes to the new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, Holly Holm, for beating Ronda Rousey at UFC 193. This was amazing because this was her third fight in the UFC. And, I knew that too, but just going back and researching some more just to remind myself, third fight in the UFC, and she gets the title. Interesting also fact was the two fights before that, one went to decision. They both went to decision. One was split and one was unanimous. So it wasn't like she was knocking out people. This wasn't her third knockout in the UFC. This was her third win, but her first decisive win. So let's break down what she did well and why she won this title. Thoughts?
Man, wow. just an impressive showing of. I think it was just a perfect storm of things that happened, and we'll get into Miss Rousey a little bit later. But yeah, just a perfect storm of things. You have somebody who is a world champion boxer and kickboxer, who was able to set her pace and execute her game plan better than anyone else has been able to do that as well, or against Rousey. Also, when Rousey went for her takedown, Holm didn't freak out. There was no panic. She just made sure to keep her arm tight to her body, and she was able to get it out and get things standing back up. Once we get into Rousey a little bit later, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the things she did. But yeah, just exclusively talking about Holm, I think that's what it is. I mean, someone who was in exceptional physical condition, and that was one thing that I noticed too. And you know, Rousey looked good at her weigh-in, and you know, like she always does. But I don't know if it was just, you know, looking back and, you know, hindsight being 2020, she kind of looked sluggish even to initially start the fight. So I don't know exactly what causes that, or if it was her conditioning or whatnot. But looking at Holm, exceptional condition. She didn't look very much, you know, she didn't really look different after, you know, the weigh-in. Like, you know, you have people who rehydrate and they, you know, almost gain close to 10, 12, 15 pounds. But she was able to come into the octagon looking good, set the pace early, and was able to execute her game plan. And it was shocking how effective it was.
And I want to break down even before all of that, because yeah, during the fight, that was the, you know, you couldn't have asked for a better way to win. She won in all aspects of stand-up and wrestling. I mean, she really put everything together, and it was a true mixed martial artist way. Mm-hmm. And that's another funny reason why I wanted to give a big thank you and why we're here at the Davenport Boxing Club in Davenport, Iowa, is because I want to finally, you know, put my hand out and make a truce to boxing fans and fighters everywhere, and I've done both. And I want to say, can we just call a truce?
Yeah.
Because Holly Holm is a perfect example of somebody who used all of it to win.
Right.
She used boxing for sure to win, mm-hmm. and then to set up almost the win. Then she won by head kick. So that's both.
Yep.
That's both.
Yep.
Set up with your hands, win with your feet. So it was a perfect marriage of boxing and MMA. So there's all the, you know, still all the stuff of boxing versus MMA. I just want to be done with that. It's not one or the other. They're completely different sports. They're both parts of, you know, boxing mm-hmm. is a part of mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
It's another facet of it. So I just thought that was interesting, and that's why we're here today, just to show love to one of the biggest, you know, boxing clubs in the area too. But going back to Holm, her composure before is something that I said was going to be key for her, that I thought of why she might win, and was very impressive to me. On the press conference call, I got done with the call, and we'll talk about that call later mm-hmm. with a controversial bit of Rousey. But she was so composed and said a line that said too that so many people get into the cage with Ronda Rousey and they've already lost because they look across, they've gotten sucked into the whirlwind of what Ronda Rousey is and everything about it, that they've already counted themselves out. Mm-hmm. But she said, you're in there for a reason too, and I'm in there for a reason too. They didn't just pluck me from the street and stick me in there. I'm in there too because I'm good and I'm worthy enough of a contender fight, or I'm worthy enough of a fight with the champion. Mm-hmm. So that puts her up right next to the champion. I mean, that's, if you're in there with her, it's both of you on the same stage mm-hmm. in front of the same amount of people. And I thought that line was very telling, that I just thought, wow, she's very confident. She doesn't sound scared at all. She didn't trash talk Rousey going in. You know, everything she did during the fight, you know, she had to have studied how to avoid a takedown, and she got a takedown of her own.
Right.
Which was one of the biggest things that wowed me. There was two things that wowed me in that fight. One, it wasn't the kick at the end. It was her taking down Ronda Rousey. And like you said too, when Ronda Rousey went in for a takedown, she ducked under, spun around, went out the back door, and had Rousey flailing. Yep. She went to, you know, so bad, she missed it so much that her knee still went down, and she grabbed for nothing.
Yep.
Angles. It was that's boxing too. Angles, angles, angles.
It is, and like I said, it was a perfect storm of everything. Like if they had a rematch, I don't know if it would go exactly that way, but just seeing, to compliment Holm again, to see her footwork. I mean, her footwork was. I mean, even that one scene with, Rousey going for the shot and, coming up empty, that was just sort of the icing on the cake. But throughout the entire first round, you had so many instances where Holm was just sidestepping. I mean, just catching Rousey with a jab, sidestepping. And I mean, it was impressive to see. And like you said, that's a supremely trained boxer right there. Like, just you see things that other people don't see, and if you're not trained to be able to go against that, it turns out the way it turned out. And if you see Holm go up against someone who's a little bit more well-rounded and who also has some boxing skills, it would be a completely different fight.
Right.
Because there are certain things that you're not going to be able to get away with that she was able to get away with against Rousey. And like I said, I can't give her enough, compliments and kudos because, like you said, she had no fear. Well, I'll ask you this: what do you think about the whole the situation at the weigh-in? Do you think that was some sort of form of intimidation or disrespect, or was it something that just happened and she wanted to show that she wasn't going to back down?
I think it just happens to. I don't think that it was a whole facade, the nice person, girl, Holm, leading up to it, and then right at the weigh-ins that breaks, and she's that's the real Holly Holm.
Right.
I think at the weigh-ins you're completely depleted of energy. Mm-hmm. You're not really yourself. You're just at the lowest part of the whole training camp. The weigh-in is the lowest part of you being, cognitively coherent, really. Mm-hmm. So you're just you're done. You're ready to fight, but you're hungry and thirsty. And then when they get in the weigh-ins, I think Rousey, she started it almost. Mm-hmm. She hopped off the scale, mm-hmm. and darted over to somebody. So already you're on the defensive with somebody coming at you like that, then pushing your face into them, and then when you're squaring up, if you do touch and you give a little nudge, it's fine. It's not. It's just hey, we're gonna fight tomorrow. You get caught up in the whirlwind of it. I think that was fine. Mm. And Rousey does it all the time. They butt heads, and I think it was just she was looking for any reason at that point, and people have said that too. So I'm not the first one to say it. Any reason to be mad at her, any reason for some drama, just because that's what she does. Mm. She didn't touch gloves. To continue that on, that's more disrespectful to me than getting nudged. If somebody nudges me at the weigh-ins or butts heads, whatever, if I go to extend my hand to you before we fight and you don't touch it, that's more disrespectful to me than anything you could have done the weigh-ins. So I don't think that was a big deal. I think I hate weigh-ins myself anyway. I mean, I love them to go watch and they're fun. They're great to be at, but all the theatrics with them, I'm like, you're fighting tomorrow, so just save all that. Like, I'm not into that. So, no, I think it was fine, and it's gonna be interesting now. We'll talk about the low kick of just what happens next, and so many people. There's so much now that this win does. Mm-hmm. It shakes it up a little bit. And it's just going to be interesting to see, what they do. Ronda Rousey is not, and we'll talk about her when we get to her.
Right.
But Holm, I don't know. I just think it's one of the biggest stories of the year. I mean, it's up there with GSP and Silva losing. It's nobody saw it coming. People that asked me if it was fixed and if I thought it was fixed, it's a ridiculous question. And if you're my friend and you ask me that, you're still my friend, but I just shake my head at you like, there's fixed fights look a certain way, and beatings look a certain way too, and I don't think somebody would let themselves get beat like that to be fixed. No, so.
and I mean, just the way, and saying that it's fixed takes so much credit away from Holm, and I definitely wouldn't want to do that. She came in with ridiculous odds and was able to overcome them, and she got a few people paid too. Like I talked about in my quick kick video, there was a guy who put 10 G's down on her. He had just got through winning $2.5 million after betting on the Kansas City Royals to win the World Series. So he's on a nice little roll right now. So I believe odds were close to 10-1, somewhere in there. But I have another question real quick before we wrap up. But would you consider this the biggest upset in MMA history?
I would, because of the way that it was done.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris Weidman beating Anderson Silva was not that first one was a pretty big upset too.
Right.
The second one not so much because it was an injury. But no, I would still think that this one would be, because Anderson Silva didn't have the marketability power that Ronda Rousey had. He was the biggest fighter, but he wasn't the biggest star.
Right.
So I would still say that, yeah, this one beats everything. There was, in Holly Holm, I early on, I even thought it's a bit early for her to be getting this title shot. I wasn't saying that she wasn't going to win, but I thought it was a bit early for her to get it. So I don't think anybody saw this coming.
Right.
Where a few people, I think, did maybe see, Silva with all his weird stuff he was doing, that he was going to lose pretty soon. I don't think anybody thought Ronda Rousey. I think they probably thought she was going to lose to Cyborg. So that one people would have been ready for. So yes, I do think that this was the biggest upset in sports this year.
Now let's play a little bit more fantasy, and I got another question for you. Since we're doing this from the Davenport Boxing Gym, you have Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas. Sitting right now as the biggest boxing upset probably in history.
Right.
Is this bigger than that?
Ooh, I still think so, because of the star power. Mike Tyson wasn't in movies, and he wasn't. I don't know. I just think star power right now, yes. Ronda Rousey is one of the biggest names right now. I feel like, period, in entertainment.
Sports, yeah.
Sports and entertainment.
Yep.
So, yes, her getting dethroned by somebody that not a lot of people know of. They will now, but going into it, I could have said Holly Holm to 10 people, and 5 people probably aren't knowing anything about her.
Right.
So, and if I would have said Buster Douglas, they would have known.
Right.
So, I still think that bigger than that. Yep.
Yeah, I still think the Tyson Buster Douglas upset was bigger, only because going into that fight, you had somebody who was arguably this is just like Rousey, arguably the best athlete on the planet, someone who had been devastating, who had racked up a very impressive resume of victories, and that's one thing I can't really say about Rousey. I don't know if she's really beat the best,
right?
But and the one thing, and I got to give credit to one of my friends, Dave Jordan, for bringing this boxing, aficionado, everything. He just lives, breathes, poops boxing.
That would hurt.
Poop, yeah. But he said that Buster Douglas going into that fight was a 40-1 long shot. And man, and you can't really put too much, into long shots and betting odds and stuff, but it just shows you the magnitude of that defeat that Tyson took. So I probably have to still give it to Tyson, but that's what this show is about. That's what sports are about. That's what the whole boxing MMA rivalry is about. So I would love to pose that question to our fans. What do you think? Which one was bigger, Rousey versus Holm, or Buster Douglas versus Tyson? Which is the biggest upset in sports history?
Yeah, let us know at Kick and Makeup, at Hybrid MMA. Let us know what you think. I bet you that's right. Because Rousey is she's been, dubbed the Tyson of MMA. So
exactly.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question to end off on.
All right.
So we're gonna turn it a little bit, just a bit. Talk about our low kick, staying in the same conversation as well. Though the low kick goes to Ronda Rousey. And it doesn't just go to her solely, but it goes to everything leading up to this as well. So what did she do wrong leading up to this fight? What did she do wrong during the fight? There were rumors of Ronda's mother calling out head trainer Edmund Tavarian as a bad person, as a terrible coach, leading up to this. It came out in public that Travis Brown and Ronda Rousey were dating. That was after Rousey was so adamant about domestic violence, within couples, and then she dates Travis Brown, who's just had his wife saying that, he beat her, and just her for me, her overconfidence leading up to this fight, and just, she did in a lot of interviews give credit to Holly Holm, but then she turned it right away and said, well, but she's not going to beat me. But she just had that arrogant bit about her.
Right.
And I think all that led up to this. All that stress, all of just not focusing on the fight alone and that entertainment star power, doing a lot of different things, starring in movies, just led up to her ultimately losing this. And so I don't know if you feel the same way on all that.
I kind of think that the Rousey thing and, movies, TV interviews, all that type of stuff is just what you have to do when you become a upper echelon entertainer. And I think that that's just part of it. I mean, I give more credit to Holm for her, her ability, and also the situation with her coach and how their game plan going into that fight was obviously wrong. Going into that second round, after you've had a chance to sit on that stool and sort of regroup and figure out what you're doing, you're still telling Rousey that she's doing great. Let's stick to the game plan. No, everybody who was sitting at home, Case, it didn't matter where you were at, you saw that the game plan that they were executing was not working, was not gonna work. So this is when you have to, and hindsight 2020, but this is where you have to change things up.
Right.
I think it became a situation for Rousey where she could no longer just win. She couldn't win. She didn't. It wasn't okay just for her to get a W. She had to be better at boxing than someone who's a world champion boxer, just to say that I'm the best in the world and just to be part of those conversations. So maybe that sort of messed her head up. Whereas if she would just stick to her bread and butter, which is, and like that got stuffed. So, that's kind of invalidating my point too. But maybe if she had went with more of a ground game plan, it would have, done and came out a little bit better. But I think that, as we've seen over her past few fights, Rousey had to sort of box, people, and just to show that she does have boxing skills. And, even before the fight, her and her coach were both saying that, Rousey's boxing skills are better than Holmes. Like, come on now.
Right.
Like, you're talking about somebody who is a world champion. You're not a world champion by accident. I don't care if you're a 5-year-old world champion. I don't care if you're a 12-year-old world champion. You're a world champion, and you're the best in the world at something. And for her to say that, she was better than her at boxing, no. And she went out trying to prove that, and she got knocked out trying to prove that. And I think that you really have to, in a fight, you can go in with a game plan, and you can stick to that game plan if it's successful. But if it's not, you really need to change up. So all that other stuff that was happening before the fight, I think that's just what you have to do. When you become a megastar like her, you have to do that. And obviously, she knew what Holmes' game plan was. If you saw the Jimmy Fallon interview, where she
called it to a T,
called out exactly what was going to happen. So you knew what to expect. You knew how it was going to go down, but you came out and tried to outbox a boxer.
Yeah.
And I think that was the major tactical error that she did. And I think once she realized that, man, maybe I do need to go for a takedown, as you saw, she whiffed on it, but that was because she had gotten hit in the head about 10, 12 times already.
Right.
Probably feeling fatigued. She looked exhausted by that point, already got a split lip, bleeding, and which is all experiences that she's never had. She's never had these situations happen to her in the octagon. So it's all new for her, and that's why I'm really excited, and I'm sort of flipping my script because I'm not the biggest Rousey fan, but sort of flipping my script, and I'm really excited to see where she goes from here because she really has an opportunity to cement her legacy at this point and not look at it as something where, she took a loss, she's not undefeated anymore, and you can just go and, ride off into the sunset, like that. It's nice to face a little bit of adversity. Yeah. It's nice to have these conversations now where she's going to have to dig deep inside and figure out how to battle, the demons that she's going to face over the next few months, because it's not going to be easy.
Oh, and the fans have been relentless.
Yes.
Relentless. Probably the worst I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
ever with being excited about her loss. And I'm not excited about her loss because I would never wish a beating upon anybody, even if I would never have stepped foot in a cage. Still, to be on that and just to know what, to feel like I know what she goes home with and sits down when it's all over, and just that defeat. I mean, you're on top of the mountain and then you're not.
Right.
That's got to be devastating. But yes, I'm also excited too to see what she does next, who she fights next. But I don't think. So if it's a rematch, which is what we've already heard, an immediate rematch, I said probably around February or March, something like that. March is usually a big show for the UFC. And then the winner of that. So I had all this in my head of what happens, because UFC 200 is in the summer. She's obviously going to be on that card. If she still continues to fight, which we've seen some weird stuff as well.
Right.
But if she continues to fight, I feel like she would get a rematch in March. In between that time, too, Miesha Tate, if she doesn't retire, which she's been talking about, and Cyborg, those two will fight, and the winner of that will get Rousey maybe, or the winner of that will get Holm, or they'll do some round robin of everybody, to see who. So they might not, after the rematch with Holm, they may not give her the rubber match right away.
Right.
They may have, like I said, I think Cyborg and Tate are gonna fight, and the winner of that is gonna fight Rousey, or the winner of the second Holm and Rousey for a third fight. So it's a weird way, but I don't know.
Yeah, since we're playing fantasy Dana White now.
Yeah, that's fun.
The fantasy Dana game, I like that. Should patent that. But yeah,
Done,
since we're playing that game, I kind of feel like first we're gonna get Tate versus Holm, and I think that everybody and their mama, including Dana, is going to pray that Holm is able to win that fight, because if she doesn't, that throws another huge, huge curveball into everything. But if she's able to win that fight, then I think you'll finally get the rematch at UFC 200. Where does that put Cyborg in the meantime? I really think that Cyborg at this point is sitting pretty. You have to think, and that was one of my first thoughts after Rousey lost, was that if Rousey were to have fought Cyborg in the place of Holly Holm, that the same outcome probably would have happened, if not worse. And you have to think that, if they're, forecasting things now, that an eventual, and it's crazy to even get to this point, but, an eventual Holm versus Cyborg fight would be incredible to watch. But before I forget, and I've been blabbering a lot, but I'm excited to be back, man. Excited to be back, and especially
today.
and especially with having probably the biggest fight of the year, that just passed. But to think now that for so many shows, for so many years, we've been watching this show for years. Well, 2 points, or we've been doing this show for years, but. Rousey really only came into the sport about 3.5 years ago, and to see her climb to the heights that she was able to climb, to put women's MMA at a place on the map where it pretty much did not exist before her, and let alone at least it was not in its form now, its popularity now. You have to give her enormous amounts of credit. So she deserves that. And, we're not trying to do a eulogy on her or anything like that. But, I think it's now time to reflect a little bit and say that, man, 3.5 years is a short amount of time to go from, where she was at to the best in the sport, the biggest draw in the sport. And, that just gives a opportunity for others to come along and be able to do that. But also, for the longest that we've been doing the show, we've been asking for someone to challenge her. We've been begging for someone to at least put her into a dangerous spot. And we got that and more. So in the short term, I'm sure the UFC is a little bit shaken by this, because I'm sure they didn't plan on having Holly Holm end up being a champion and Rousey getting a loss. But as far as the growth of the sport goes, this should help to grow the sport exponentially.
Right. And if Miesha Tate, because we like to talk directly to people that are watching this.
She watches. We talked to her before.
Right. This isn't the first time. So
hung out.
Again, it's been a while.
Kinda.
But
slightly.
You need to get yourself into a boxing club Immediately.
Yep.
If you, and I know you work on stand-up, and I know that's a part of it, but you need to look at this fight, dissect it, and see that precision boxing stand-up won this fight. The kick was the final piece, but it was everything before that. It was the stand-up, and it wasn't the kickboxing stand-up. I don't think. I think it was the boxing stand-up and the angles. And like I said, I was so excited to see her. And we talked about it earlier. You know, what's gonna make Holm win this? You know, getting in, getting 2-3 hit combos, and then getting out, staying out of range. And that's exactly what she did. Miesha Tate and Rousey, they just sprint at each other immediately, and they lock up immediately. That's not gonna do it this time. It didn't do it the past times. It got you into the depths of the rounds with Rousey, which nobody else did.
Right.
But it didn't win you the fight.
No.
So do not, if you get another opportunity, get caught up in the whirlwind like everybody does with Rousey and just sprint at each other, because Holm did not do that, and Holm won. And won fast. So please learn from this, because there's a very good chance that, like you said, Tate and Rousey, or Tate and Holm, will happen eventually or soon. Or I believe this, breathes some fresh life into Miesha Tate as well.
It should.
She was on the verge of retiring. There was a lot of rumors going out that there was even one thing I read, and rumor, so we don't know if it's confirmed, but if Dana White maybe said that if Miesha Tate retired, it wouldn't be a bad idea. So there was a lot. She was frustrated with getting the fight she got, but this loss from Rousey opens the door to a lot of different things right now.
Yeah.
So
and not
please
just her.
take
not
advantage.
just her. Everyone in that division, and I think that this shows that there's a new blueprint, and more so than anything, that there are other ways that you can go about winning against the someone who's in. And for lack of a better phrase, ultimate fighter. Like, I mean, there's ways to go about beating anyone, and I think that there's a certain combination that you have to be able to hit on, and Holly Holm was able to do that. But that should just tell everyone that there's no one out there who is just unbeatable, So
Right. So what I'm gonna do right now?
Oh, one more thing.
Okay,
real
not
quick,
right now.
real quick. Can we put to bed the ridiculous, unfair, stupid, dumb idea that Floyd Mayweather would lose to Ronda Rousey in a fight?
I believe we can.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, definitively. First of all, it's unfair to begin with. You should never compare. I don't think you should compare a guy and a girl regardless. I mean, the weights aren't the same. It's not fair. But on top of all that, someone who is to see someone who's a world-class boxer tear Rousey apart, let alone you got somebody who's a man who's also a probably infinitely better boxer, would do the same thing to Rousey. And I mean, it's a ridiculous, unfair comparison to begin with. But if you were to just throw them together in the octagon, in the ring, this is what would happen.
Yes.
So there's no way that that sort of thing should even be compared. So can we just put that to bed completely?
We're going to. We are going to put that to bed. Good night, stupid scenario.
It's horrible.
So this is what I'm going to do now. We're driving in a car. We've been on the Rousey and Holm. So what I'm going to do...
You got to hit the gangster lane. I don't mean to lean in.
I'm driving like a grand... Oh, we're on the road. Okay, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to go like this with the wheel.
Oh, shit.
We're off the road now. We're flipping now. Yeah, you didn't expect that, did you?
Nope. I got my seatbelt on now.
Because the BullKick is so far off the road from what we've been talking about that I just had to flip. I had to flip the car, man. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, we were a smooth ride. Now we're in a ditch somewhere. We're gonna do this from a ditch. The BullKick is from a ditch.
From the ditch.
Off-road ditch. Bellator. My God. I love you, but my God. Bellator 149 coming up. This was released a couple weeks ago, but I still want to talk about it because, oh my God, man. Everybody's been talking about this anyway coming up. So on February 19th, which is a little bit a ways away, but God, we got to talk about this. Bellator 149, Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie, Part 3. The first one was UFC 1. UFC 1. That was their first match. The first one. Their 200's going to be in a couple months this summer. So then, and then their rematch. And so Ken Shamrock, or excuse me, yes. Like I said, I had to think about it. Gracie, choked out Shamrock. So then the rematch was UFC 5. Where it was a draw. It was like half an hour, 35 minutes. Nobody wants a draw. So 20 years later, their trilogy ends.
20 years.
God,
20 years.
20 years later, the trilogy's over. Finally, we can put this to bed. So
if they even make it to the ring.
God, man. Right. So that's the main event.
They'll be asleep.
Gracie is coming out 10 years. You know, he hasn't fought in forever, so it's just ridiculous. Co-main event to that is Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000. And if you don't know who Dada 5000 is, welcome to the whole 95% of the world. That's not us, because we know who he is. He's the star of Dogfight documentary. He's the, Miami-Dade's king of backyard, bare fist fighting. So he's going to fight Kimbo Slice. So like you said earlier this week, it's the, king of backyard versus king of internet fighting.
Bum fights.
So that's the co-main event. And for me, I'm like, what? I even wrote down, Bellator, what are you doing? Like, I get the super fight. And I remember when being around the IFL and working for the IFL, I feel like they were the first ones to kind of do the super fight.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of made sense. So they were the coaches of the teams fighting.
Right.
There was some reasoning to the super
Mm-hmm.
fights. There's no reason for these fights, or I'm gonna watch them. I'll watch whatever. Let's just throw that out there. I like MMA, so I'd watch a pony fight a monkey.
Right.
But man, that'd be a good fight too. Bellator
Pony monkey.
150, a pony versus
Pony
a monkey.
Okay.
That's interesting.
What's Bubbles doing right now?
I'm not sure.
Did he die?
And what pony's been is there any famous ponies? My
Mr.
Little
Ed.
Pony? Oh, I said My Little Pony. It's not even real. My Little Pony versus Bubbles. Somebody draw that. Can somebody draw that poster and send it to us, please?
We will show it next week.
My Little
next
Pony
show.
versus Bubbles the monkey.
Yes.
But we get one. Why? What did you think when you saw this? I'm crying. Why? Why, Bellator? Why?
Well, first of all, like I hadn't been paying, close attention to that, that there was another Bellator coming up, and I actually had one of my coworkers tell me what the card was going to be, and I immediately just burst into laughter. I thought he was joking. I 100% thought he was joking. I'm like, no, and then laughter, and then no, and then you're serious? And he said yes. And it's laughable. Now, if this show was happening anywhere within our 6-hour radius, we would be there 100%.
Done.
Just to be in the building for something like that. But it's totally not the route that I feel and that we feel Bellator should be pursuing at the moment.
No.
If anything, I go back to wrestling, and here we go. We've dealt with boxing and MMA. Let's deal with wrestling and MMA. But the comparisons are legit. You had WWF/WWE back in the day, and you also had WCW. WCW did not have the game plan of necessarily stealing, fighters or, getting legends and having them, fight it out, people who are well past their prime. They had some of that, yes. They had some of that. But they also had those elite talents who were under the radar, who were young at the time, who were developing. And I really think that Bellator could serve that purpose. And I think they could be very successful and popular if they market it correctly. If you serve as the up-and-coming promotion and you have younger fighters, because, obviously, if you look at the UFC, there's a dearth of young talent. There isn't a ton of it. There's some, you have some guys and girls, but it's not as good as it could be. But those fighters are out there. There's no reason that those fighters don't exist. Working with Caged Aggression and Mike Goodwin, we see them. Whenever we do shows, we see that talent that's there, and those guys are there. So I think that Bellator could really, with the TV contract that they have, with the promotional ability, you also have you have to have some sort of money coming in, but they could serve as that promotion who gives the younger fighters a chance and showcases those younger fighters. So if I were them, that's what I would be looking to do. And I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't have your Shamrock and Gracie fight, I guess, but in your undercard should be stacked with young and up and comers, some people that you can get excited about, and maybe you'll be able to build your brand up, your entire brand up enough that when you get that next, the next Silva or the next Rousey, that there'll be that huge debate over whether they should stay with Bellator or whether they should go with UFC. Should they continue to reign, at the top of Bellator, and you can eventually get Bellator to rival the UFC if you're smart enough and you have that long-term plan. But I think that they're so caught up in trying to grab money and grab that quick whatever money grab that they can get, that they're gonna sell out and do something like this.
Yeah, that's what it has to be, and I'm so frustrated too because I was a big fan of their Glory and Bellator dual night fight where they had both the kickboxing cage from Glory and the MMA cage from Bellator in the same arena, and they just switched back and forth. So when you bought a ticket to that, you watched both. Now that's a great idea. That was somebody thinking. And then, on top of that, they had MMA fighters, making their kickboxing debuts on Glory. So you had like Paul Daly, who we all know as a MMA fighter, kickboxing. So you still draw in the MMA fighters, but you got the kickboxing. That's the kind of stuff Bellator needs to be doing.
Right.
That got some good steam. People were talking about it, like, wow, that's different. You don't want people talking about, Kimbo and Dada 5000. And for me, as far as the sports come, I always go for as far as the sports come. If that's the first thing that somebody sees as an MMA and they've been on the fence and they turn on Spike that night and see Kimbo Slice and Dada 5000 just winging haymakers and rolling around on the ground because neither one of their ground game's great, you're going to instantly turn off. Like, you know what? I gave it a shot. I turned on to this bullshit, this BullKick.
Yes.
And I see this. Never mind. I'm good. Turn it back off. Or you stay and then you watch Gracie and Shamrock, and you're just confused of why it looks like two 60-year-old men are in there
bringing their walkers
fighting,
to the...
because there are two 60-year-old men fighting, and that doesn't take anything away from both those fighters because at one point...
waving their canes at each other.
Don't you come at me with that leg lock.
You don't know about my takedowns.
Yeah, it's, and the history serves as well. They are legends of the sport for sure. They've helped pave the way. But God, man, if you pave the way, you don't have to still lay the pavement 20 years later. You don't have to come back and do the patch jobs later. You put it down, let it go, man. So it's frustrating. I'm going to watch it. You're going to watch it.
Of course.
But I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, and it's that spectacle sort of watching now. It's not something where I'm like, oh, I really want to see this, or I'm even compelled to try to break down who would win. I don't care who wins.
I don't care either, really. I don't care. And I had a weird scenario when I was thinking about this. Reminds me this morning when I was thinking about the show. This reminds me of when I eat Oreos. I won't eat those Oreos unless it's in my living room. But when it's in my living room, I will eat half the package.
Yes.
Nonstop, no breaks, half or more, done.
Yep.
And I don't eat Oreos a lot. So this is the Oreo fight for me. I wouldn't watch this if it wasn't on TV, but you put it in my living room for free on Spike. You're forcing me to watch this, and I'm gonna feel guilty afterwards, just like I feel guilty after the Oreos, and I don't like to feel guilty about things I do.
Yeah, and I hate that they're doubling down on the BullKick at this point, because we've seen Ortiz and his ridiculous main event. We saw Shamrock and his ridiculous main event.
Is this setting up, or is this weirdly setting up like if Shamrock wins and then Kimbo wins, they get a rematch. Who cares? Their first fight was controversial as well because I rewatched
Now
it.
Now that was a fix.
I rewatched
That's
it.
how a fix
I rewatched
looks.
it the other day, and Ken Shamrock went on being mad at Joe Rogan that he said the fight was fixed, but you had the rear naked on, you couldn't choke out Kimbo Slice.
Seriously?
Okay. I mean, okay. I guess you got to go with it, but man. So this is setting that up. Like, really, who cares? Who cares? Bull kick, bull kick, bull kick. Just
Yes,
through the table. I'm not gonna throw the table. Pat.
Yes, our equipment.
We're here. We appreciate everything, but gosh, if I just felt like throwing this table. So that's the bull kick, man. That is the bull kick.
Yeah, and that's probably, man, that might, depending on how this goes, this could be bull kick of the year when we do our year-end show that we love to do probably in a few weeks. So yeah, just remember this one. Remember this one.
We're going to be talking about this at the end of the year. We're going to be talking about this at the beginning of the year because February is when it is. So, man, we got a lot to talk about coming up, and that's what I wanted to say too. I'm glad you guys are back because December is a ginormous month. The end of November is huge. So next week, UFC Fight Night Mexico on Fox Sports 1. Kelvin Gastelum versus Neil Magney is the main event, the co-main event. I'm so excited for.
Yeah.
Ricardo Lamas versus Diego Sanchez. That could be fight of the year.
Oh, big time.
I mean, that's going to be, hopefully that's going to be nonstop action. Diego Sanchez just doesn't care about his brain anymore, which is not very smart, but fun to watch. So he just goes out there and swings and just is just a bloody mess every time. So, that's fun to watch. And then fifth-ranked flyweight Henry Cejudo, who's gotten some big news, this year, is going to look to rise in the ranks to fight on number 3 ranked Jussier Formiga. So fun stuff. He's a big name in the flyweight. Flyweights have kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but Henry Cejudo's a big name that's coming up. So interesting to see what he does. The following week, it's UFC Fight Night South Korea. Henderson versus Masvidal. Benson Henderson versus Masvidal. So that's going to be fun to watch. Pretty cool that Henderson's fighting in South Korea. He is part Korean. So that's awesome to see him fight. I'm sure it's going to be pretty emotional for him. And then, my God, man, UFC in December.
The week of weeks.
I think they're like dubbing it, 9 days, hashtag 9 days or something, because the UFC has 4 cards in December between December 10th and the 19th. So December 10th, it's Paige Van Zandt versus Rose Namajunas, and that's on a Thursday night, I believe, on UFC Fight Pass. So in December 11th, Friday, is Mendez versus Edgar on Fox Sports 1. Then December 12th is the card of the year. McGregor versus Aldo, finally. Rockhold versus Weidman.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, right.
Fingers crossed.
Who knows, man? Maybe Kimbo Slice will win and then go over to UFC and fight McGregor. Who knows? So that's December 12th. And then 1 week later, December 19th, a fight that I think is going under the radar a little bit, but I hope it picks up some steam, is this Cowboy finally gets his title shot versus Dos Anjos for the lightweight title. So, my God, man, we're going to be busy. We say we're going to be busy. UFC's going to be busy, but we also should be pretty busy with content in December and flowing into the new year. And hopefully we can get out our secret information that's good to go.
A lot
we
of big
just
secrets.
need to figure out how we're going to drop it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I can tell you right now. But we won't. So that's it, man. That's the show. I hope you guys enjoyed this because we love doing it. As you can see, we just like to talk and talk, man.
Yeah, big
I don't even
time,
know
man.
what time it is right now.
I don't know.
So
Doesn't matter.
www.kickandmakeup is the website. At Kick and Makeup is the shows. At Hybrid MMA is mine. Instagram, YouTube. Not Snapchat yet, but
Nope.
probably.
I'm on Snapchat.
I'm not on Snapchat.
Yeah.
I'm not doing Snapchat.
I'm
But
on
maybe
Snapchat.
I will and do a shows one.
There you go.
I'll take over the Snapchat for the show. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe. And but we'll keep you tuned in on that. But you got plenty to do with Twitter, Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube, all the above.
Right.
American Hybrid Nick Cunningham, Jeremy J.D. Dorsey. Remember, don't solve it in the streets. Take it to the cage and kick and make up.
We're back, bitches.
I just elbowed the mic.